changing reality, the most important things, and the 11th edition of Overthrown Coast to Coast. It's Thursday, and on Thursday we kind of reserve this day for what we believe is this object that's aggravating all the different planets and aggravating everything, political systems, economic systems. I mean, it's the driver, it's the master key. The reality that we're in you can't make heads or tails of it unless you calculate this variable in, that this is a black dwarf, or at the very least a brown dwarf star that's coming to our solar system. That's just the truth. I mean, it's affecting everything. The only thing that could make up for the behavior of governments, financial institutions, nothing else. It's like they know something, and it's like it doesn't even matter. I mean, even the economic and the amount of debt of the earth, and it's just, the whole world is batty, just batty. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. Israel using micro nukes, now it's at least twice confirmed. Some people want to say as many as 4 times. In fact, we're going to get to talking about what Patty Bashir, or whatever her name is, she says they've been used 4 times. Terral, before I go into this Patty thing, Tones had a question about what's your take on NASA's space program, or space surveillance fence. They shut this down in the last week, and this just comes a month after they ask everybody to come up with ideas on how we can stop asteroids from coming in and hitting us. What's your take on NASA just shutting all that down, shutting our eyes down, the space fence? Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, the perimeter is not very far out that the fence was anyway. These asteroids are traveling very quickly, so it's not very much of a warning system anyway. Doesn't really matter that they're closing it down. And like I was saying earlier, it's difficult for an object that's falling out of the asteroid belt to actually impact us. It's very difficult. It's coming outside Earth orbit, it's crossing inside of Earth orbit, and it has to be on the plane with us when it crosses our orbit path. It's very difficult. And the percentages and the probabilities depends on diameter. Larger diameter is extremely low, extremely 0.000, it's way out there. All right. And then when you get the smaller ones, you get those a lot, you get those more because they're smaller and there's more of them. So the probability goes up. We're having more now because of the influence of the dark star, which is on the plane with us. Remember, it has a planetary relationship with our sun, so it orbits our sun. It goes around our sun, and that means when it comes in, it creates, like the asteroid belt. Every now and then, the probability, when it keeps coming in, real close to the plane, we have a planet out there that gets hit by it. That's what the asteroid belt is. In my view, that's what it is. And Venus, that's why it's disrupted orbit, its rotation, and things like that. So the space fence really doesn't do a lot. Anyway, unless you can increase the capability of it, they're only going to give you a warning. The objects coming in are going 24,000 miles per hour, and the perimeter is not that big, so it's only going to give you a few hours notice anyway. So the fact they're closing it down, they've been closing down our ability to watch the magnetosphere. We used to be able to watch the Chinese, the Japanese, the servers, and the Russians, and everybody had independent servers for watching magnetosphere. Now it's consolidated into a singular feed because the Russians and the Chinese and the Japanese, they know it's coming. And what you're living under is Rothschild rule, House of Rothschild. The Americans are Nazis. This is the Fourth Reich. Bush and you were talking about it earlier, Hijacker, the Black Star, understanding it, that's the master key. To understand economics, politics, to understand everything, what's going on. So what's going on in the Middle East right now is Rothschild is installing the remainder of his central banks. That's what's happening. It's been going on since before Lincoln. And that's why Lincoln was killed, the JFK. The War of 1812, for example, was started because of Rothschild losing his charter for his central bank, which became the Federal Reserve after the War of 1812 and after J.P. Morgan and the Panic of 1907. And if you look at your history, you'll see what happened out on Jekyll Island, the Creature of Jekyll Island by Griffin. You want to read that. The None Dare Call It Conspiracy by former Congressman Gary Allen. You want to read that. Chapter 3 especially, starting off, because that describes the families, the House of Rothschild. That's who you're living under. House of Rothschild owns the Federal Reserve, the world reserve currency. And what's going on in the Middle East was, well, Saddam Hussein was getting ready to lead a rebellion, a revolution from the Middle East against what Kissinger started in the mid-1970s. The Kissinger Agreement forced Middle East countries to denominate their wealth, or oil wealth, in dollars. That's what this is based on. Well, Saddam Hussein said, I'm no longer going to denominate my wealth, my oil wealth in dollars. We're going to something else, our own currency. And so he had to die, just like Abraham Lincoln. So it might sound strange to hear Saddam Hussein mentioned in the same breath with JFK and Abraham Lincoln, but he was a victim of the same House of Rothschild. He's a hero in my eyes, just like Gaddafi. Gaddafi was coming out with a gold-based currency, which was going to destroy all the fiat currencies on the planet. Well, that's Rothschild. So he had to die. And Gaddafi didn't have the partners with Russia and China like Syria does. The Russians and the Syrians, they're buddies. You can't just go and attack Syria because the Russians and the Chinese too. But Iran, you cannot attack them either because of the Russians. Those facilities, those nuclear facilities, were installed by Russians. They're manned by Russians. That's like Russian sovereignty inside of Iran. That's their little sandbox where they play and provide energy for the Iranians that have not attacked anybody in 300 years. So what's going to happen to Iran after Syria is a Rothschild program that's been going on for hundreds of years. That's what it's all about. It's not about oil. It has nothing to do with oil. It has everything to do with the control of currency. And so that's what's going on in the United States. China is immune to it. They're playing the same game because they're smart. They see what Rothschild's doing, so they buy gold whenever he has it pushed down, silver, like right now. And what the silver short position that is owned by J.P. Morgan, they got it from Bear Stearns. That's for the U.S. government. So the price of silver is pushed down because they're paying people to take paper silver using the back door of the Fed. That's what's going on. Corporations around the world, nations around the world are being funded by paper coming out of the back door of the Federal Reserve. That's what's going on. And the tab that's going up is over 200 trillion, going to 300 trillion. Unfunded liabilities in the United States is now beyond 125 trillion by itself. And so the debt of the Americans is larger than all the money in the world combined. So that's why you hear about a new currency, because they need something they can roll all the debt into. That's what it is right there. There's so much debt. But that's what fiat currency creates, is debt. And Americans are victimized by the House of Rothschild. But for me, that's one of the reasons that America is worthy to be destroyed, for being so stupid. Then House of Rothschild takes money that was created from the Department of Engraving, that prints up dollars. They put the Federal Reserve's name on it and ship it to them after the American people pay for the printing. And then they charge us interest on it. And then from the interest and the principal they get back, they charge us interest on the national debt. So if Americans are that stupid to allow a European group to come in here and create a central bank and create Council on Foreign Relations working groups that are creating corridors within your country. So once the Germans destroyed Poland, then they created corridors. They created a line across and then an X and then quartered it. And well, America's already quartered like a beast being filleted already. That's what the NASCO corridor is all about. And that was done by Council on Foreign Relations working groups. And those are the people that are writing your bills. Those thousands-page bills, TARP 1, TARP 2, all that. Now we have quantitative easing to infinity. It was all written by the Council on Foreign Relations working groups that are volunteering as interns and specialist counselors inside of your bought and paid for congressman's office. That's what's going on in a nutshell. And as far as the Obama thing, the birther and all that, it's never going to come to surface. If you stand in the shoes of Sheriff Arpaio from Arizona, great man, he knows that Barry was born in Kenya, and that this Kenya story is a diversion, which is overlooked because Obama is a CIA operative just like Osama bin Laden. And whether you realize it or not, the bin Laden family built the Twin Towers. All this is connected. 9/11, Scripture, Project Black, this is all connected to the same thing. And there's no way to break 9/11. There's no way to bring Bush and Cheney and those guys to justice. It never happened. It's rigged. They control the hierarchies of the power. And they've funneled everything into the New York Circuit Court for 9/11 cases, and they're just watching the door. And they have judges there that are family of all the people that did the murders in 9/11. You're never going to do anything in that regard as far as 9/11. But the reason I share it with you is so that you can see the level of corruption that is inside the United States and inside the world, because Rothschild is the head of the snake that beguiles the world. He's using surrogates. And NATO, United States, even Australia and Britain. World Bank is owned by Rothschild. IMF owned by Rothschild. And he is going to go through Syria. They've been doing regime change, just like what happened with Gaddafi, in slow motion. They can't just go and kill all the people involved with the government of Syria like they could Libya because of the alliances. So it's taken them a long time, and they are, getting a little bit desperate to get over the Syrian hump so they can move on to Iran, which is going to be a little bit similar to Iraq. And it could turn into a shock and awe scenario, but the actual most likely scenario is that there's going to be a peace treaty that comes along. World war is going to be on the brink, and then there's going to be a peace treaty, and then Rothschild will get his central bank inside of Iran with a regime change. That's what I expect to happen because, Iran is special. In the Middle East they're big. They're not like Iraq. Iraq was little. Iran's too big, and they have a power structure with their elders and things that are there. So it's going to have to be a change in the regime in order to achieve what Rothschild's trying to do. So that's my view on the Middle East thing as it's happening, the politics, the war that they're trying to charade around. See, the thing to realize is that the Russians and the Iranians and the Israelis, the Chinese, the Americans, they all sit down at the same table. They are looking into space and they see the black star coming, and the threat is way too large to accommodate other threats. They don't know how big the threat is. They're going underground. They've made preparations for it. But if they create enemies before they go into the underground Ark City, they could get Rambo in there, the lone wolf. Lone wolf is what they are all afraid of. Lone wolf gets inside of their little Ark City, everybody could die. They know that. So they're trying, a lot of the operations that you see that are being run are to expose Lone Wolf. The gun control stuff, all of that is to try to expose Lone Wolf. That's what it's all about. If really, truly they wanted to take our guns in America, they would have started back before 1900. And it would have been a progressive battle that we're fighting, because Obama and Feinstein and those guys talking about taking our guns, that's not going to do anything to take our guns, but it's going to cause Lone Wolf to react. And that's really what all that's about. And at some point, I know that Hijacker wants to get into the Patty psyop, and just looking at the clock, then maybe this is about
guns. Yeah, concerning the guns, it's like two parallel universes. As soon as they start doing these operations and start talking about taking guns, it's almost like they're the best salesmen of all. All they got to do is say, we're going to take your guns, and people go out and buy a couple million more. I just wonder if there's reverse psychology. Maybe they know something that we don't, and they want the population as heavily armed as we are. But,
yeah, I see what you're saying. If you want me to comment just a minute.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, on that part. Then you're seeing these psychological operations being run, and none of these operations by themselves mean anything, but they're part of a larger thing. So what you're talking about right now, whether you realize it or not, is part of the Council on Foreign Relations detention agenda. That's what it's about. Guantanamo Bay is established because of Council on Foreign Relations detention agenda for Americans. See, if Americans sitting right there in your chair right now, if you're willing to allow Guantanamo Bay people, they're from all over the world, they're accused of being a terrorist. So like the Obama administration says, you're a terrorist. CIA says you're a terrorist, but they're not charged. They haven't seen any charges against them, no evidence or anything. They're just sitting there rotting away. If you look at your constitutional rights, that's just a listing. God is the one that gives the rights. All men are created equal. All men are created equal. all men are created equal, even the people in Guantanamo Bay.